You can always find new opportunities and people to work with, but what happens when your options are much more limited? So in this video, I'm going to give you some tips for working with potentially difficult candidates. Hey, and welcome back. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Preston. I'm a professional recruiter in the technology industry. In both your personal and professional lives, it is inevitable that you're going to encounter people that you just don't mesh with for one reason or another. This is especially true with recruiters. After all, when you interact with so many people throughout the course of your career, you're bound to get along better with some more than others. And sometimes there may be fundamental differences that you are unable to move past. In those cases, it may be best to distance yourself from that individual as much as possible. This is much easier to do with peers and clients. You can always find new opportunities and people to work with, but what happens when your options are much more limited, like with potential candidates? Given how competitive hiring is these days, candidates can be hard to come by. That makes it much harder to pass one by. So in this video, I'm going to give you some tips for working with potentially difficult candidates. But before we get started, please consider like, subscribe, click that bell. It really means to a fellow recruiter. What makes a candidate difficult? Before we dive into some tips on how to work with them, it's important to understand exactly what a difficult candidate actually looks like, so you can properly identify them. The truth is, there is no one single type of difficult candidate. These are people after all, and people are diverse. That's why it's important not to immediately pass on a candidate because you don't personally get along with them. With that said though, their attitude towards you can say a lot about what they'll be like towards their future employer. If you're finding a candidate particularly hard to work with, perhaps even to the point of toxicity, that's a good indication that you shouldn't recommend them for the job. If you're meeting with candidates in person, over the phone, or via video conference, it should be fairly easy to identify which candidates are worth working with and which should be passed on. If you're reaching out via text such as LinkedIn chat or email, it may be a little harder to deduce the tone or the meaning. For example, an anonymous hiring manager on Fishbowl asked, "What do you do with candidates that come across as rude or short in email interactions? I reached out to several people on LinkedIn, got short responses with entitled tones. Is this a red flag?" If someone is explicitly rude or condescending in your initial email interactions, it's best to move on. However, it's important to remember that everyone has a different way of communicating via text. A professional tone to one person may come across as short or rude to another, and not everyone is going to respond with exclamation points and emojis. Also, keep in mind that great candidates are constantly being contacted by recruiters, and you're likely not the first one to show interest. If they've been responding to a lot of recruiters lately, they may not want to waste time with pleasantries. If a potential candidate isn't immediately dismissive, you should give them a chance. Further gauge their interest by engaging with them, and if they seem like they're interested in the role, try to get to know them better via phone or video call. That will give you a much better indication of their attitude and enthusiasm. Keep in mind that this doesn't mean a candidate doesn't have difficult qualities. It just means that it's worth putting aside your differences and adjusting your behavior to work with them and get them into the perfect role. So with that in mind, let's dive into some more specific types of difficult candidates and how to better work with them. Types of difficult candidates. Remember that every candidate is completely different. Some may have one or more of the following qualities. Others may have none. While it's important not to be too strict in boxing someone into one single category, it's helpful to break down some of the potentially difficult personalities you'll encounter so you can really better identify them. Once you have, you can adjust your behavior to foster stronger communications based on what you've learned here. Demanding. I think it's fair to recognize that overall candidates have generally become more and more demanding. We are, after all, in the middle of a work of people with phenomena like the Great Resignation, where qualified professionals are leaving their roles in search of better pay and more flexibility. In general, this is great. The more power candidates have in the hiring process, the better the overall employment situation is for everyone involved. However, as candidates begin to realize their worth, they may go overboard with their demands. They may ask you for extreme flexibility when it comes to contact times and scheduling interviews. They may expect travel reimbursements or merely demand a higher salary. As a recruiter, you should do your best to accommodate their needs, but also remind them who ultimately has the hiring power. Coming on too strong will turn off potential employers and hiring managers. Overconfident. The overconfident candidate has also become more prominent recently. Candidates who are frequently contacted by recruiters or potential employers may develop an inflated sense of worth. While an overconfident candidate can certainly be demanding, they most often are eager to rush through the interview process, feeling that their knowledge and experience should speak for themselves. The best way to deal with these candidates is to honestly remind them of the importance of the interview process and urge them to take their time and demonstrate their value instead, assuming that an employee will be able to identify it. Challenge them with difficult questions and try to catch them off guard, showing them that there are things to be learned can help enthuse them for the role and bring around a much needed sense of humility. Needy. Let's be honest, most potential candidates aren't exactly eager to engage with recruiters. Cold contacts will mostly go unanswered and the responses you do will be brief. However, some candidates are too eager to please. They may contact you you every day looking for feedback or potential roles. Frequent communication can be helpful, but can also be a waste of time. Reassure needy candidates that you have them at the front of the mind and will contact them as soon as something relevant comes up. Nervous. Nervous candidates have it especially difficult because their nervousness is not usually related to their qualifications and experience. You could have one of the best candidates for the role, but you might hesitate to present them to clients because their nerves frequently get the better of them. It's important to remember that some people have difficulty with interviews, but will perform perfectly once they're in the role. In fact, a nervous employee likely indicates that they are passionate about it. Help nervous candidates by prepping them extensively with mock interviews and make sure to give them honest, in-depth feedback so they can work on areas that need improvement. Manipulative. A manipulative candidate is the exact opposite of a nervous candidate. They might be able to talk the talk, but can they put their money where their mouth is? These candidates make excellent interviewees and are able to converse with industry vets via buzzwords and complex jargon. But keep in mind that this does not necessarily reflect on their actual skills and experiences. If you feel that a candidate is being manipulative or dishonest about themselves, put them on the spot with questions and inquiries into their past experiences and do your best to get them to demonstrate their skills tangibly. Working with candidates' general tips. I've already discussed how to better interact with your candidates in some of my past videos. The following tips are for candidates who might be great overall, but you may be having difficulties from getting information out of them. Smile. If you're with a candidate in person or on video, don't forget, smile. After all, they say you're never fully dressed without one. A smile is universal. It helps put the other party at ease no matter their background. Even if you're having trouble maintaining a positive attitude, a smile can do absolutely wonders. Relate to them. If you have the time and inclination, a great way to get candidates to open up is to engage them in conversation about things outside of their professional lives. Ask about their personal lives and do your best to show genuine interest in their hobbies and passions. And if you can find common ground, all the better. Having a casual, friendly conversation before getting down to business is a great way to ease that natural tension that comes at the beginning of a new interaction. Conversely, jumping right into a job interview or other professional interactions can be awkward for both you and the candidate. Remain patient and compassionate. So if you've been following for a while, you'll know the economy is in a very tumultuous, uncertain position at the moment. Tech and financial industries are in the midst of mass layoffs and hiring freezes, all while a recession looms on the horizon. It's a tough time for a lot of us right now. So the best thing that we can do, especially with candidates, is step back and attempt to empathize. Not only will this help ease interactions between you and the candidate, but it will also help you hone in on what drives them, so you can further personalize your interactions and engage them further. Don't take things personally. After a negative interaction with someone else, it's easy to internalize those feelings. Perhaps it causes you to lash out at the individual, or maybe it starts to affect your future work. If someone is rude to you, don't take it personally. Resist the temptation to retaliate or adjust their behavior to compensate. Stay strong and keep moving forward. As long as you're being your authentic self, trying your best every day, you will find success. So this just about wraps up this video. Can you think of any other types of difficult candidates that I forgot to mention? I love hearing from you. Make sure you leave a comment down below. If you like this video, want to see more like it, feel free to support a fellow recruiter. Give us a like, subscribe, click that bell. It really means a lot. Feel free to also follow me on Preston_Parker, as I try my best to also post behind the scenes content daily. Thank you so much again, and we'll see you on the next one.